In this lesson, I want to go over the filter section, which is this section here. So to turn it on, you click on this button, turns blue. Now it's on. Now if I play a note, you can hear that the filter is on. I can also click in this screen and then it shows me what the filter is doing. So you can see that the green line, you can see that it is being filtered. So that top end down here in this section is going downward. So that's the filtered section, what it looks like after the green part, and then the blue part is what it looked like before. There's also some phase information. If I click again, I get this phases little curve. So you can see some of the phasing that is going on with this filter. Now let's click on that again to get rid of the screens. Don't really need those. I just like looking at the basic screen. Use this basic screen for most of the purposes of, don't really need all that extra stuff. I mean, this one's pretty useful to see how much is filtering off, but not necessary. Then you can click up here to get your options for this type of filters. You've got the 6, and these are the curves. So the higher the number, the steeper the curve of the filter. So this is low, as in low pass. You can use low pass or high cut interchangeably. Low pass, you're letting the low end pass through, and high cut, you're cutting off the high end. So they just use essentially low pass. And then you have these ones called low 6, which are similar, but they sound different. They have a bit of a different response if I just play a note on the slow 24 versus MG low 24. Most of the time I hear a difference when I'm using this resonance knob. I notice that there is a stronger resonance sound with the low 24 versus the MG low 24. You can see that resonance curve is steeper for the low 24. So this is just something to play around with when you are playing around with these type of curves. These are the most common ones. 12 and 24 are the most common type of curves that you see on a lot of synths. So play around with these MG low 12 and 24, and also the low 12 and low 24. You also have your high pass filters, band pass, where you create like a band. Band 24, once again, that is dealing with the slope. You have your peak. Peak 12, peak 24. And your notch, which just takes out some, like a notch, some frequencies, just takes out a deep cut of some frequencies depending on the cutoff. So then you've got some multi options where you have multiple different types of filters in one. So this is a low cut or low pass and high pass and 6 dB curve. So here is the low pass, and then you adjust this variable knob. So this variable knob changes depending on the filter that you choose. So you can see it says frequency now. So now I'm adjusting that high pass frequency. But if I go to, let's say, MG low 24, then it says fat. So that is almost just giving it a bit of a dB boost. And one thing to note is that when you adjust this resonance, you are decreasing the frequencies down below. So often what I will do is increase this drive to compensate for that gain loss down in these lower frequencies. Now these knobs stay the same. Usually you've got your cutoff, your resonance, this drive, and then the mix. If you don't want to have 100% mix of that filter, and this is useful if you want to use one of these flange or comb filters. These are more crazy sounding filters where you've got a lot of types of stuff going on. Like you got like dips here, and so like you might not want this to be at 100%. That almost sounds like a formant filter. So you could adjust the mix, playing around with that. And there's a bunch of different options for these flanges, phase, or type comb filters. Then you have like miscellaneous ones. This one's like adds a bit of a ring modulation, which is pretty cool. This sample adds a bit of bit crush or like downsampling. And you adjust this cutoff knob to play around with the intensity. And there's another one that's like sample hold negative, which does a similar thing. There's this one called all passes, which is pretty interesting. Can get some pretty crazy sounds out of that. There's this one called reverb, which a lot of guys in bass music use this filter to get this like metallic sound from the just using. So I just have a saw wave. Let's see if I just increase this unison, see what that sounds like. Put that mix at 100%. So yeah, you can get some interesting sounds using that filter, this reverb one, and then you have, this is a low pass as well. Kind of got some variations there, and then this German low pass one, another low pass filter. Let me put this now, I'll just put this back on the MG Low 24. Let's talk about this pan knob. So at 50%, it's not doing anything, but if I pan it a bit to the left, then the cutoff will increase on the left side and then decrease on the right side. So you should be able to hear the left side getting a bit brighter. And if I do the opposite, then the cutoff increases for the right side and decreases for the left side. And this is almost just like adding a offset to the filter, and it's almost like adding a bit of stereo width you can think of, or adding just, if you have a like mono sound, a lot of times you might do something like the Haas effect where you delay offset the left and right sides. So with the pan, you can change the left and right side and give it a bit of a stereo effect. And it's not as pronounced as using something like the Haas effect, and you probably won't notice it too much just using a sample or just a simple saw wave. But when your sound gets a bit more complex, you might notice it more, and it might add a bit of depth. And we can look at this Span plugin, which is a free plugin. You can definitely grab this. I use this all the time and this will be useful as we get into deconstructing sounds. And this is just a spectrum analyzer. So if I just play a note and I have this, you're going to see two curves. You're going to see one for the left and right. The right is going to be red and the left is green. So let's go ahead and test this with the Span and take a look at what happens if I decrease this pan. So at the moment, if I just play this, I have this view to be showing the left and right. The right is going to be underneath this, have a bit of a red look, and the left is going to be the green. So let's go ahead and just decrease this pan, and we'll exaggerate it. So there I was switching between the green and the red. So the red you see is here, and then the green is there. And that's what is happening when I adjust that pan. Where the green is the left, and when you have the cutoff raising up and increasing, you have more of these higher frequencies. And when you have the right decreasing the cutoff, because I turned this pan to the left, then you have less frequencies. So let's set that pan back to 50%. Now, if I add on another oscillator, I'm going to play it. Well, now you still hear that oscillator. Let's adjust this fine tuning. But that's because I didn't turn on the filter for the oscillator. So you have these buttons. Now you can turn this on and off. If I turn it off, it's not going to be on at all. If I turn it on for A, it's only on for A. If I turn it on for A and B, now it's on for both of them. Then you have turning it on for your noise and your sub. So you've got all the 4 oscillators here where you can turn on your filter. And then there's this thing called key tracking. Now, what this does, if I play a note, it's going to adjust the filter depending on where I play the note on the keyboard. So if I play a note that is lower on the keyboard versus higher, then you can see that the cutoff is going to raise higher for that higher note. So that is something useful for maybe like synths, key type of presets, and maybe just also doing things like if you're doing like acid house and you want this filter to move up and down, playing like lower and high notes. That's let's see, I mean, I'd have to add on some distortion stuff, but essentially that's kind of like another thing where you'd want to use it. So there's this filter on the oscillator page, and then there's also, let's go and take this off. There's also, we're going to talk about the effects more in depth later, but there's also a filter in the effects page, and you've got all of these same filter options. Sometimes these filters on this effects page, I noticed they sound a bit different when I apply them. So if you're on the oscillator page and you're putting on the filter and it's not functioning, sounding how you want it, maybe also try using this filter and see if there's a difference. I don't know why that happens, but that's just something that I noticed that sometimes when I use, sometimes when I use one of these more like complicated filters, I notice a difference. And also I wish that there was one of the things about Serum is I like all of the visual representations of what is happening. This filter does not have the visual representation of the filter. So if we go back to this one, now I talked about all these knobs. If you notice this mix is gray around it, that's because if I click on the mix, it switches to level. And now I can actually adjust the whole level of the filter. So if I want this filter to be quieter, or louder, then I can make those adjustments. That is everything that I wanted to talk about for the filters. I will see you in the next lesson.